I think one of the biggest things as a chef, it's really important for me to try to educate people on utilizing the whole animal. With the cost of goods and cost of protein just skyrocketing, I think what's really important is to connect the farmer to the consumer, the person who raises the lamb. And I want to encourage all of you to try buying whole animals and preparing them yourself, because once you build up that confidence, game over. Not only will you save a lot of money, but you're doing the animal a service by utilizing the whole thing. A lot of people nowadays are just so accustomed to going to the grocery store, grabbing lamb chops, grabbing a lamb shoulder. Well, what about everything else? What about the lamb leg? What about the lamb neck? What about the lamb belly? What about the bones? What about the innards? There's so many other parts of the lamb that we need to utilize, but in all honesty, it starts with the consumer. So that's what we're gonna do today. I've got a lamb. It only took me 25 minutes to butcher. I wanna show you how to do it. So let's jump right in. So here we have a whole lamb. I wanted to take this opportunity to show you how a chef butchers lamb compared to how a butcher butchers lamb. It's pretty much the same. But, you know, I just do things a little bit differently because I'm not going for retail. This would be for a restaurant scenario. And so without further ado, we'll jump right in. And fun fact, the difference between lamb and sheep is that the lamb is less than a year old. That's the difference. And believe it or not, I didn't know that when I was first cooking. And this lamb was born in spring, so it's a young, probably 8 to 9 months old. But with that being said, let's just jump right in and we're gonna get into it. Basically, we wanna separate this into 3 sections, right? So one of the things I like to do first is kind of like using the seams. Right, and basically you wanna feel where this hip bone is, and don't be scared. Just come on down. So you can see this with the GoPro. See where this hip bone is? What you wanna do is just follow this straight down. And what we're gonna do is we are going to get rid of that. Flip this bad boy over. Same thing, see where the hip bone is? You have to feel it, you gotta press for it. Same side, go straight down, okay? While I'm in here, I'm gonna go ahead and remove this flat meat. Okay, this is called belly or whatever you wanna call it. What's important throughout this process is everybody does things differently, okay? So, you know, at the end of the day, I learned a lot of different techniques. And I think what's really important is, you know, there's the term, there's 100 ways to skin a cat. I know that sounds kind of gross, but you know, it kind of just is what it is, right? So using leverage, you just want to break that vertebrae and you'll see we'll be able to get through that bone ever so gently. And then once I go through the bone, stop cutting. You don't want to get any bone dust. I don't know if you can see that. I don't have autofocus on, so you probably won't be able to see that. Next, coming over here, what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna go ahead and start working these shoulders. Okay? Using leverage. Oh, made a little mistake. Behind the shoulder blade. And this shoulder will come right off. Okay, we'll put that to the side. Go ahead and take care of the other side. So usually, if you can see, this carcass is a little bit over dried. For me, I like to hang about 5 days, but you know, sometimes you got to pick and choose your battles. And also, another thing I want to mention, you know, these shoulders are going to be small, right? So I'm not tripping about, you know, wasting meat or trimming off a little bit too much. I think what's really important is just kind of like, you know, in a restaurant scenario, you have to remember, like, I'm just gonna cut through this neck here. You know, in a restaurant scenario, you know, we have the need for speed. Now, hey, listen, the neck is probably one of my favorite parts on the actual lamb. So for the pieces we're not working on, I'm just gonna throw them behind me. And so that way I can trim those up later. Right now, we just wanna get the separate sections. All right, so super important. Basically, we're gonna cut here first. So I'm gonna look for the 6th rib from the inside. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so I can see it from the other side. Perfect. And just same side over here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Just so I can see where I'm at. Perfect. Then next, now I know this is going to be sacrilege for some people, but I think it's really important. This brisket or this breast here, the breast meat, I think is one of the most underrated. And I think what's, for me, I like to treat it separately, but we're just going to use a hacksaw to cut through here. Okay, and then same thing. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to mark where I cut. So that way I can go straight down. Using leverage. Okay, well, what I'm gonna do is now that I have that side marked, it's actually pretty easy to find where I cut. And remember, you want to do as less work as possible. So perfect. Boom. Okay, so now we have, this is literally, trust me when I tell you, this is probably, an extension of my favorite part. So like, see this little mistake here? Don't even worry about that. What we want to do is we want to take out this little skirt. Okay. Unfortunately, this is too chewy. You could like grill this up, but it just shrinks up. So this is going to end up going in grind. All right. One thing here, I will say. Okay, take a little mark. Bring Mr. Hacksaw out. So with the hacksaw, what's really important, what I've learned is that, your cutting happens from the back. So you want to push forward fast, and the cutting happens when you're going back. So a lot of people make the mistake by like sawing without a purpose is what I call it. Push forward, pull back, push forward, pull back. And trust me when I tell you, you'll get cleaner cuts and it'll be way more efficient. Okay. Now, you always have to be careful. Make sure you do not slice your hand off. And what's really hard, as you can see, is when you're using the hacksaw, make sure, try to keep a straight line. So what I'll do here is I would consider these lamb ribs. What we'll do is we will trim this up. I'll put this over on the other side to be trimmed. But, it's a really good part that I think gets underutilized. They grill up really nice. I like to braise them down too. All right. While we're here, we're going to go ahead and take care of the legs, the back of the animal. And what I want to do is just want to start by removing these little pieces here. And obviously you can do this in the start, but for me, I just go with it. Now you have two options here. One is either a cleaver you can use, but again, I'm going to use the hacksaw just because I can see the spine. So if you see that, GoPro, check this out. You see the spine, you want to follow this line all the way down. And so basically what we'll do is we'll just push forward, back, long strokes. Watch your finger. There we go. All right. Remember, leverage is your friend. There we go. Boom. Okay, perfect. Now, obviously, you can debone, and we'll get into that, but what's really important with a leg of lamb, since this is a baby lamb, basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the hip bone, then I'm going to go in here and remove where the femur is connected to the hip bone, and that's an easy, really easy process. We'll just put these right here. Okay, now we have the creme de la creme. So what we have here is considered in some countries the lamb saddle. This is where you'll get your lamb loin from, okay, and then your lamb chops, right? So I think what's really important, lamb chops are considered the ribeye if you were looking at beef cattle. Here is where you can get your think about beef as T-bones, New York strip, filet mignon, right? So what I like to do is I like to make sure that I am focused on not fucking this up, right? Because this is where your money is at. This is where what people go for. I mean, obviously this is a smaller lamb, but I think what's really important is, you know, taking your time and doing this process right. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get in here and get some of this suet, I like to call, or lamb fat. And most of it just comes out nice and easy, but be careful not to rip the little tenderloin out. It's right underneath this. And I'll be honest, the butcher didn't leave the kidneys in here. And I like the kidneys. Lamb kidneys are really delicious. Yeah, see, it just comes right out. And so one of the other things I will say with butchery in general, I like to keep this hand clean. It's really hard when you're doing a whole animal. So what I recommend is just having a handle that's not slippery, or a towel where you can wipe your glove and the handle, because there's nothing worse than slipping when you go to cut something. And so it's just really important. Like, you know, everybody has their different ways, but for me, I like to just keep my butcher hand clean, but it's impossible when you're moving a whole animal. Yeah, usually this just rips out once you get a finger up under there. So I think what's also important is when you get to this, you know, this lamb ate pretty good. I'll tell you what, all this fat is good fat. Perfect. Yeah, I mean, as you can see, it's pretty easy. I mean, this is, you know, for me, this is one of the things I learned as a chef, like that just kind of, really separated my butchering skills from, entry level to like master butcher, right? Now I'm still, I haven't busted down a whole lamb in years, but, I went from doing it every single week to like really kind of like just getting the, partials of the animal. But I think what's really important is like, we need to bring craft butchery back. We need to bring it back. We need to like start letting people know that, hey, there's a whole animal involved here, and it's not just the lamb chops and the saddle, right? You also have the legs that need to be accounted for, the neck, which is equally as delicious, the breastbone. But with that being said, I'm gonna separate hypothetically the lamb chops from the saddle, or the T-bone area, is what I like to call it. So that way it's easier to pronounce. Okay, we'll flip this right over. And then what I like to do is come straight up and then follow the bone, so you're not cutting through a whole bunch of bone. And, some people like to go 1 or 2 ribs in, 1 or 3 ribs in. It really depends on what you want. But for me, it's kind of like, you'll see what I'm talking about. Usually the saddle is one of those things where it's a prized possession, and we'll end up boning this whole thing out. Okay, so a little bit of hacksaw. And then remember, once you get through the spine, stop cutting. Then lift up. Beautiful. Just to give you an idea, so basically you can see this is where the New York strip would be. The tenderloin is down here. You're going to get most of your, like, let's say T-bone cuts out of here. So fillet, and this is your strip, right? And so some people will take this, cut it right down. What I like to do is I like to trim all this out, literally trim out the backbone, and I'll show you that process here in a minute. All right, now we have our lamb chops. So basically at this point, what I like to do is I like to go 3 ribs in. So 1, 2, starting from the second rib. So 4 ribs in, 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'll just make a little cut right here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so we'll just cut it right here. And then we'll make a little incision. And honestly, this will probably just score in the back here. And what we'll do is we'll just cut straight down. Nice long strokes. There we go. All right. Lamb chops are the prized possession, so basically you want to make sure you cherish this section. All right, so I'll just make a little score here. Now, you can go from the back, or you can go from here. And what I want to do is I don't want to lose this little piece of meat here, so I'm just gonna. Now, obviously, bandsaw, much easier. Okay, but I'm going to use hacksaw. And I like going from this angle. There we go. Okay, ever so gently, straight down. Okay, so beautiful. This is your untrimmed lamb rack. Okay, so we'll get into trimming that in a second here. Okay, let's run into this real quick. So I know it's kind of messy, and you know the term is literally called butcher, but I'll tell you right now, in my experience, I don't waste any time. When I have the whole animal, it's not time for finesse. It's about going through it as quickly as possible, especially if you're doing it by hand. And as you can see, I have everything laid out. And so I just kind of want to go over, you know, and I got the GoPro here too, so we'll just switch screens. But let's talk about this because, you know, a good example is this lamb whole would run you anywhere from $200 to $300 if you had it processed. But if you go directly to a farmer and have it custom cut exempt, you know, you're saving a ton of money, and this can feed a family for like 2 to 3 weeks. So what I want to do, one of my passions as a chef is really teach people about the whole animal so that way we utilize everything. It's not just the midsection. This is what the consumer knows and wants. Yes, a little bit of shoulder, but for me, it's kind of like, it's super important for me to show you, hey, this is what comes from the whole animal. One thing to look for with the whole animal, make sure there's no hair, there's no visible guts or any like kind of things you don't, entrails or anything like that. But let's go over this. So lamb legs, okay, right here. This is all untrimmed. Subprimals. So basically leg, you have your lamb saddle, which is comprised of your T-bones. And so, you know, lamb racks here. This was that little belly flap that I was talking about. Unfortunately, this does not cook up well. I've tried everything. The only thing that I thought was really cool, what I did was I confit these, braised them out, pulled the individual strands from them, and then crisped them up in the fryer. Again, coming to the center. So here, let's start over again. So you have your T-bones, your New York strip, and your filet mignon, right? But we call this in the restaurant industry, we call this the lamb saddle. And what we'll do today is I'll take out the spine and then we'll roll it up. And that's my favorite preparation for this. These are the lamb racks. Everybody knows what a lamb rack is. This is obviously untrimmed. One of the things I did, obviously, is I cut this little, usually you cut straight down, but because of, you know, I know it with experience that I'm taking this part off anyway. I usually go ahead and cut that little shoulder part so I don't have to cut through it. And so you'll see that consistent with both. And so some people might leave this hole on, but I just go ahead and remove it because it's just easier. With that being said, here, I'm just like rambling on here. your lamb rack, okay? And then this is, so let me tell you something. I like to keep this separate. Like think of this as like a St. Louis rib or something similar to that. What I'll do is I'll get in here and clean this up, and then we'll braise this out and then grill it, right? So you don't waste it, because you're not gonna use this, right? Like we might trim this a little bit. If anything, we're gonna just straighten it out, but you're not gonna use these as lamb ribs, right? You're gonna sell it as a lamb chop. This, perfect for lamb ribs. That's why I like to cut it before I do anything else, so you have two sets. All right, next we have the shoulders. Again, this is a baby lamb. It's not a baby lamb, but it's a teenager lamb, I would call it. So the shoulder's not that huge, right? The lamb neck portion, dude, this is my literal favorite part. I love this part and this part, and you'll see how I take care of this. I love to roast the neck whole or cut in slices and treat it like ossobuco. But I'll tell you what, this in a ravioli or this in risotto is beautiful. And the thing is you have all that bone, so it creates so much flavor. But this is it. This took me about 20 minutes to do. Obviously, I have a little bit more training than a lot of your normal person, but I want to just show that with a hacksaw and also, a few knives, you can get through this. Trust me, we could do this together. And it's really important that, especially with the cost of ingredients nowadays, the cost of protein, like this is ideal. And you can get this done. I highly recommend going with your farmer. And then using a custom exempt facility, so that way it doesn't have to be state inspected or USDA inspected. All right, now let's cut some subprimals. So I know we went over a lot of things today, and trust me, everybody has their own opinions, but this is a beginner way to butcher a whole animal, starting with lamb. And I really want to start this series off by just saying, I'm going to be back on YouTube. YouTube's probably going to be my primary platform. And I really want to go into where I've been, what I've been doing, what I've been up to, what does the future look like. So, bear with me. I'm juggling a lot of balls. I got a lot of irons in the fire, but, in all honesty, Montana has been the best thing that's ever happened to me. I really, truly believe I've been growing as a chef. I'm directly connected to farmers, ranchers, and purveyors. I have more skin in the game because we have a full 4 seasons here: spring, winter, fall, summer. Winter maybe about 6 months out of the year. But I think it's really important. One of my dreams and legacies as a chef, or one of the legacies I want to leave behind, is, taking over a state that has no chef representing it, right? And so even though I've worked for a bunch of great chefs, I want to have my own voice, I want to have my own opinion, and I want to be known as one of the best chefs in the world. So click on the next video, because I'm going to tell you all of what's been happening since earlier this year. And stay tuned. Make sure, if you're not subscribed, make sure to hit that subscribe button, turn the post notifications on, and go follow me on my other socials. Let's go.